Welcome back again. This time we're going to look at the modify panel on our ribbon, and it's just here after the main line commands. The first thing that we're going to look at is the move command. When you can move various bits of geometry all over the place. So let's draw some simple geometry. Let's just draw a rectangle here, and not really bothering too much at the minute about the dimensions of that, but we know that if we type in the command dist, short for distance, just to get an idea of what we are playing with, that's roughly about 700 units across the way. So I want to move this rectangle maybe over here by, say, 2000 units, just to give it a nice clear space in between. Okay, so let's go for that. Let's go for the move command. And what you're being asked to do, if you can keep an eye on the command line as much as possible here, select the rectangle, and after every selection, hit enter. Now, what it's asking you for is a base point. Now, you can pick any part of this rectangle. You will eventually be quite more specific about base points, but let's just take it from the midpoint here as our base point, and this is the point that we're going to kind of shift it across the way. So click on that, and now you can see that you can drag it across. I'm not pressing on anything just now. I'm dragging it across. Keep it that in a straight line. If you want to make it really straight, go for your ortho mode on, and then we'll type 2000, and that means you've moved it from here over to here by 2000 units. Okay, now a similar command to that is the copy command, which is just underneath that. So again, we'll go for the copy command this time, and then we'll select that with a blue box. After every selection, hit enter to move on to the next stage. We'll go for the same base point here, okay, but this time, instead of moving it, we're going to copy it. So we'll have two of these rectangles, and we'll put in the same displacement here, 2000 units. Okay, and then enter to come out of that, because if you don't hit enter, it's just going to keep asking you to go for more copy points. Okay, so let's just test this out. If we type in the short for distance, DIST, and then enter. This was your original displacement point here, remember? So go from there across to here, it'll be 2000, okay? So that's your first displacement point, and it's the same displacement point, but it's at a different coordinate now. So that's 2000 units across. Okay, just escaping from that. The next command we're going to look at is a stretch command, which is this icon here. Okay, now you can stretch a command and all, or sorry, you can stretch a bit of geometry in all sorts of ways. In fact, what you could do, I'll just delete that one there actually, and we'll just concentrate on this one. You could click on the rectangle, and you could stretch it that way. Okay, just undo that. You could stretch it with this little grip here. Okay, so you can move the grip in and out. You can contract it. Okay, so that's one way to do it, but the best way really is to go through the stages. Okay, so the first thing you do is go to your stretch command, click on that, and then start from the right rather than the left. Okay, so right means that you're going to have a green box. If you start from the right, it's a green box. If you start from the left, it's a blue box. In this case, we need the green box. And we're going to finish our selection point there. If you go too far, then the stretch won't work. Because what we want to do is we want to keep this side here fixed. And the bit that's going to stretch is the bit that we're crossing over. Okay? Once you select, hit enter after every select to move on to the next stage. Now the base point is going to be in the middle here for the sake of argument, and let's stretch that by, say, 5,000 units. So whilst we're dragging along, type in 5,000, and then you'll see there that it's made it a much longer rectangle. Okay, so I'll do the same command, but this time I'll contract it back to where it was. And again, you would use the stretch command even though you're contracting it. So we'll start from here, just outside to the right, click in there. As long as it crosses over some point here, you don't want to go too far. You don't want to get that last line there. You want to go in there, select it. After every selection, hit enter, get your base point, okay, and then drag it in the way, and then type in 5,000 to bring it back to the original point. Okay, so that's your stretch command. If we wanted to do a rotation, so let's say we wanted to have this rectangle up on its end, again, just go for the symbol, go for the icon, select it with a blue box or green box here. It doesn't matter as long as you get the whole geometry. Click on it. After every selection, hit enter to move on to the next stage. And then in this case, let's make our base point here because we want to kind of topple it onto its end. Okay, so once you do that, click on it, and then you can kind of start moving your pointer around like that. So if you were to do it 90, it would go, or minus 90, it would go like that. 180 would be like that. 270 would be there, and then 360 would be back again. So let's make it minus 90 and click to land it. Okay, so let's just do that again. This time we'll put the ortho mode off. Okay, and I'll show you how much more flexible it can be. Rotate, select, after every selection, enter. Let's make our base point here in the middle this time, and you'll see now that it's much more flexible. There's the pivot point there, just there, but as you can see, it's much more elastic. Okay, if you go back to ortho again, it'll just go 90, 180, 270, and so on. Okay, right, so that's that one. The next one is a mirror command, and I suppose the way to do this one is to maybe just offset this or rotate it slightly. Just switch our ortho off a wee bit here. So we've got some geometry here. We need an axis. Okay, now the best way when you're learning is to actually draw the axis in. So let's just draw an axis there, and we want to mirror that or flip it over to the other side, and we'll move. You can get the option to either keep it there or to delete the first geometry. So we'll show you. Go on to this mirror icon. This is the actual geometry that we're going to mirror. Enter to move on to the next stage. Go from the top of the axis down to the bottom. Click it again. Do you want to erase the source objects? And I'm going to say no to this. And that's it. Okay, so the next function that we're going to do, or modify command, is the scale command. Now, this is fairly easy to start off with, but it can get a little bit more complicated. So we want to scale this to maybe twice the size. Okay, so that's fairly straightforward. Hit scale. It says here in the command line, select objects. We're going to select the blue box. Enter to move on to the next stage. And let's say we want to make this our base point. And now it's allowing you to do a random scale right up the way. Now, if we wanted to do it twice the size, we just make sure we click into the command line there, type in 2 for twice the size, and there you can see it's twice the size. Okay. Now, we can also scale it down the way, so let's just do that again. Click scale, select it, enter to move on to the next stage. Click your base point, and in this case, we can go for 0.5 for half the size. And there you go. Okay, now in this case, I'm going to do another rectangle, only this time I'm going to try and get this one up to the same scale roughly as this one. Okay, so go to scale, select this object, enter to move on to the next stage. Select your base point, and once you select the base point, we don't want to be guessing what the scale is of this other object. So we want to go to reference, and we want to select the reference length. So the reference length is the original length. Okay, so let's go from here to here. Click again, and then specify the new length. Now, if you go to points, then you can basically trace out from here to here, and that will bring you up to the same size from here to here is exactly the same size from here to here. I'll just do that again, only this time I'm going to copy this across to make a better example, and I'm going to scale this up randomly. So this is a better way to do it, better way to explain it. Scale, select objects, enter to move on to the next stage, specify a base point, go to reference. The reference length is the first object, so from this point here to here. And then the new length, go to points, and that will go from there to there. And they're both are the exact same size. In the next modify command, we're going to pick the trim command, which is the scissors symbol. Okay, now as you can see there from the preview, you can trim away certain lines that you don't want to leave the lines around it. And in this case, they give the example of a doorway. So I'm going to just do that exactly as they've got here in the preview. So I'm going to make a doorway first of all, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here and make this roughly 3,000, not too far off it. I'm going to give it a width of 100 millimeters and back that way. Okay, so that's one end of the doorway. I'm just going to offset this, and we'll do the offset command shortly, and we'll make the opening 800. And we'll just finish that off like that. Okay, so we want to put a door in there. We want to have the door sticking out the way, and then you'll see the arc for the door swing. And this kind of gets me back to one of the previous tutorials. Okay, the next command that we're going to do on the modify panel is the trim command. And you'll see it represented here with the scissors icon. And if you mouse over that, you'll see that it can, I'll just do that again. Trim allows you to take away lines around doorways, for example, and that's just the example that we're going to use here. Okay, it's not like an erase command. It's a little bit more. More than that. So first of all, I'm going to put in a couple of lines down a typical wall here. Let's just say this wall is 100 millimeters thick. I'm going to make another. Let's just make another line to represent something that's going to be a door opening. So we don't want these two lines in between here. We want to keep these lines here to the side, but we want to take away the two here in the middle. So the way to do that is to go to trim. Okay, once you've done that, hit enter straight away. Okay, and then just take a green box and swipe across those two lines like that. Okay, that means then that you can then start to put in your doorway, or your door I should say, and then you can make your door swing almost the way that we did with a previous with a previous arc command. Yeah. Okay, so that's the trim command. The next command we're going to do is an extend command. I'm just going to draw a line roughly 7,000 millimeters there. Okay, doesn't really matter too much in this case. But a line perpendicular to another line hasn't joined yet, but we're going to make it join. We're going to make this line come down to here. Now you've got to get into the extend command, and to do that, you'll not see it straight away. It's tucked in behind the trim command. Extend, click on that, and it says select objects. Now the temptation is to select the line that you want to extend straight away. What you need to do is select the boundary line that you're going to extend to. So select that. After every select, hit enter. And as you go to the line that you want to extend, you'll see already that it's wanting to extend that. Just click on it again to confirm that, and then enter to finish. Okay, so the next command that we're going to look at is the fillet command. Excuse me. Now, fillet command is quite useful because you can actually join two lines that haven't actually met yet. Okay, so we might have a line there, a line that appears to join into it, but you just need to join them at the junction here. So what we do is we go to fillet. Now just check to see that the radius is 0. Once the radius is 0, hit enter to come back to what it says here is select first object. So you select this object and this object, and then you can join them together at 90 degrees. Now, the radius command is quite useful because it means that we can, as you probably guessed there, you can make this into a curved corner. So we'll go to fillet again, fillet, and you've got to go to radius, and let's make this radius something like 500. Now you need to know the length of these two lines here, because if you make the radius larger than the lines, then it won't work for you. So let's make that 500. And it gives you a nice corner there, a nice radius corner. Now if I was to go something like fillet radius, say 10,000, it wouldn't work. I'll show you now. Okay, so you just get a little message saying fillet radius is too large, so you need to know the lines that you've got here and that you're going to fillet. Okay, fillet can sometimes work, sometimes it's not the best command to use, but you can also use fillet for lines that are maybe needing trimmed here. So I could go for a trim command up here. I could just press enter, and I could take that line away and that line away. Just undo that. Or you could do fillet. Go to radius, make that 0 just so that we're okay. So you could click this one as your first object, this one, and it will take these two lines away. Right, so the next command that we're going to do is an array command. Now, array is a bit like copy, but it's, you can only really copy something in certain directions. But it's very useful because, for example, we'll just take this these lines away here. If I wanted to draw a brick, for example, and I wanted to make that brick, well, the standard size is 215 that way. And let's say we're doing this in elevation, so we're looking straight on at it from the outside. Okay, so we've got a brick, 215 millimeters, 65 high. Now let's say, for example, that we want to make a mortar joint in between each brick. So we want to get maybe say 10 bricks high here. The way to do that is to go to Array, select it, enter, and you'll see some options in front of you. Now the easiest way to do this to begin with is to really drag this back into there. I'll just do that again. Click and drag, and then with this one you can just drag it up to say roughly 10 or 11 rows. Doesn't really matter in that case, but what we want to do now is we want to get this mortar joint to 10 millimeters. Now, if this is 65 high, you want this displacement to be 75, so 65 plus 10. And the way I'll show you by doing that is to click on it. It brings back all of these options here. And you'll see if you go to this particular option here, the row spacing. The row spacing, we want to make that one 75. Okay, so if you look closely, you'll see how this actually works. Enter, and now you'll see that you've got a 65 plus 10, so that's 75 plus 65 plus 10 plus 65. Okay, so that shows you how you can stack these high. Equally, we could do that on its side if we wanted to do a section through a wall, same principle. Okay, now this is still in the array mode. If you wanted to, you could go explode, which we'll come to in a second, and basically shatters that up into its constituent parts. So it basically explodes it up into 10 or 11 rectangles. Okay, so the array command is very useful from that point of view, but it's also useful for, say, you could draw circles. If you were to draw maybe a studded mat or something like that, tactile mat, and again, array. We'll go for a rectangle array first of all. Okay, so you could drag it up like that. Could be a char tray to show the texture. So rectangular array is probably the one that you would use the most. You could maybe do a fence. So if you had a rectangular, that could be your slat on top of your rail and your post, and you wanted to array that, enter to move on to the next stage, and basically just drag that along as if it was a fence. Obviously you need to pick this one here and drag that down. Okay, next one we're going to do is a polar array. So let's just say we had, for example, well, let's say we had a line doing something like that. Just going to release here. Go to polar array, and we want to make maybe a circle of these. Okay, specify the center point. I could say the center point's here, and you get the idea. You could increase the number of these all together. We've got 6 here. Could maybe make that say 12. Okay, and you get the basic idea of how you can array radially. Okay, the next command we're going to look at is erase. Now, a lot of people tend to use the delete key on their keypads for this, but I'm going to show you how you can maybe just do some simple erasing. When you get to very intricate kind of detailing, you don't want to erase everything in sight, and that's why it's useful to know the various ways to erase. Now, I might have explained already in a previous tutorial that you can erase all of these by going to the little kind of eraser here. Click on that. You can do it with a blue box. Select and enter. Just undo that again. So erase, start from the left-hand side, drag it down in the blue box, land it again down at the bottom right here, and then enter. We'll take it away. Or, oops, just come out of that. Or what you can do is you can erase the green box. What's the difference, you might say? Well, with a green box, it means that you can take away certain bits of geometry at a time. You can maybe eat into some of these here. You can eat into that. Anything that crosses the path, or any line that gets touched by this green box, it gets taken away. Now, there's a couple of other selection methods as well. You can go erase, And before you select, you can type in fence. Basically provides you like a little tracker, so that any point that tracker goes through, the whole line gets taken away. Okay, but it can be quite useful sometimes. You just take it on a little walk right the way through your model, and then once you've taken away the lines you want to, hit enter, and then enter again. Now, I mentioned the explode command. The explode command is quite useful for things like blocks, which we'll come into later. It basically shatters something into its constituent parts. So on a basic example, you would take maybe a rectangle in the form of a polyline, and if you wanted to shatter that polyline up into 4 separate lines, you would hit explode, and there you can see that line can get taken away, that line can get taken away, that line, and that line. Oops. So that's the explode command. And then one that you'll use quite a lot is this one here called the offset command. So probably used it before in a previous example. If you have a line, and let's put our ortho mode on just now, and we run our line across here. Let's just get in a wee bit closer. Okay, like that, and just zoom into that with your mouse wheel. If you wanted to offset that by, say, 500 at a time, right? It's like a copy command, but you only really copy it in one direction. So press offset. Now down at the bottom in the command line, it's saying specify the offset distance, and I'm going to say 500. Once you've done that and you've hit enter to move on to the next stage, click the line and then click again. Now you can do that repetitively. Okay, and as I probably said before, you could do that with a polyline. Just do it again. In fact, let's do it with a rectangle instead. Okay, so basically a rectangle is a polyline, okay, because it's all joined together. What you can do, as long as all of these lines are joined together and there's no little gaps in between, you can hit your offset command or offset icon, and let's make this the same. We'll make it the same offset distance, 500. In fact, we don't need to press 500, we can just hit enter there. Click on the rectangle and click inside. Click on it, click inside. Click on the line, click inside. Equally, we can click on the line here, click outside. So it's just a clicking exercise. Very handy for doing cavity walls. And that basically covers the modify commands for now. From time to time, you'll see how you can vary the offset command, for example. You know, and there will be variations on these, but for the time being, that's the basic commands you'll be using, or the basic editing functions of the modify panel.